Hi, my name is Brian Stevens from Mortgage Shots, and today I'm going to be interviewing Jim VanSteenhouse, who is the president and owner of Interleague Mortgage, which is based out of Houston, Texas. Jim has one of the most remarkable stories I have ever heard in my life, not only related to the mortgage industry, but in general. On a hunting trip about a year and a half ago, Jim found himself up against, believe it or not, a grizzly bear. Today we're going to talk about that story and find out how that affects how Jim looks at the business and life in general. Jim, thanks for being here.
Pleasure to be here.
So, let's set this thing up. You're on a hunting trip. Where were you at and what happened?
Northwest Territories of Canada, the Mackenzie Mountain Range. We were up there for a 2.5 week moose hunt. I'm an archery hunter, so I don't carry rifles. Your guide will have a rifle, okay. But I go up there to recharge. I think every person is like everybody has a battery. You've got a battery, I've got a battery. It's no different than our cell phone. You recharge maybe by reading or being social or going to your man cave. I recharge in the mountains. And when I was up in the Northwest Territories in September of 2015, it didn't turn out the way that we had thought.
So you're hunting without a gun, a real proper weapon, and you're looking for moose. Well, I mean, a proper weapon in terms of defending yourself.
Yeah.
So you're hunting for moose, and you're miles away from anything.
Yes.
And then how did it occur? So did you notice the bear coming at you, or what was the situation that led up to it actually getting to you?
So to set the stage, you fly into Edmonton, and as you get further and further north, the cities get smaller and smaller. Edmonton, Yellowknife, Norman Wells. Then from Norman Wells, you take a float plane into the Mackenzie Mountain Range. Okay? Then they drop you off on a lake, and from there you take a helicopter. And the owner takes you out in this helicopter into the Mackenzie Mountains, finds a suitable place to set you down because he manages about 2,000 square miles.
Okay.
And says, I'll see you guys in about 10 days. Right? So we pack up, and you were there for 10, 12 days on your own, scouting. My guide did have a rifle. He had a 44 lever action, which is not the biggest rifle to have. Yes.
Okay.
Kind of like wider. And when you're hunting moose, you go up on a mountain and you glass. You use your binoculars all day to look for a moose. And the irony was, it's all about centered around a can of tuna fish, because we were there for a 7-day stint, and I had 4 cans of pop top tuna and 3 cans of need a can opener tuna. And it started day 1 when I asked my guide, I said, I got 4 pop top, 3 can opener cans. What are we going to do when I get to the can opener cans? And he says, you don't need to worry about that. We're only on day 1. Well, I asked him the same question on day 2, the same question on day 3. And on day 4, we were looking out over a ridge. And when it was time for lunch, I looked over, I asked him a question, the same one. Today is my last can of pop top tuna. And thinking that it was going to be a comical exchange, when he looked over at me, his face just went completely blank. And he said one word, bear. And I just instinctively turned to my right, and standing at about my 430 was a mature boar grizzly bear, about 3 yards away. He was about 850 pounds.
Wow.
And if you know anything about bears, had he been on his hind legs, that's more of a sign of dominance. You're in my turf, where you would stand your ground, just maybe back out, just be cool about it. But the head's bobbing back and forth, clicking teeth, and a grunt, and eyes that just looked right through me. I looked back at my guide. Had he shouldered his rifle, I would have had to lay back because I was in the line of fire. And when I looked back, he was just in the same spot. And I looked back over my right shoulder after that bear, and he was on me.
So, maybe recollection. What were your thoughts when you saw this? I know it had to be instantaneous and surreal. Do you recall having a thought when you saw this? Did you understand what was about to occur? Or where was your head at?
When I looked at the bear, fear sets in. You can feel, I can remember you know, people have times in their lives where they feel the hair stand up on their body, and I can remember it just felt like every hair in my body was just. And when the bear hit me, the first thing that I didn't think I was gonna make it. I said, you know, I thought about my wife, my children, and there unequivocally to me, I did not think that I was going to come out of that. Because the first thing he hit was my head. I had my hands over my head, and I could feel the moisture of his mouth on the back of my hands. And if you've ever had a head injury, you don't hear that from the outside, you hear it from the inside, as his teeth were just ripping into my skull. But my hands were over my head, and I could hear them just snapping like twigs in his mouth.
The bones in your hands.
The bones in my hands. And he went from my head to my shoulder, and I was just, in my mind, just trying to hold my face as close to the ground as I could. But it was the one time that I knew that was it. I remember, to your point, Brian, just saying, Lord, here I come. And in my mind, there was no way I was going to survive that. I mean, you take a look at statistics in Canada with grizzlies, when you're that remote, you don't survive that.
Were you having conscious thoughts? Fear, terror are obviously going to overtake you, but do you remember actually having thoughts during this attack?
Yes. I thought about my wife. I thought about my children. I distinctively remember saying, Lord, here I come. Have me. I have not been a perfect child, but I'm on my way.
You didn't think, boy, I might blow through that lock on Bob's loan in a couple of weeks. That
didn't happen to come through my mind.
Okay, so as you're being attacked, we had spoke about this a little bit earlier, and the bear was actually dragging you away from your guide. Can you talk about that? From
the point of attack to when it was over, it was about 150 feet, 50 yards. When I started out, I was on a ridge, glassing. And when I picked my head up off of the ground, first of all, I'm on the ground, pressing my face against the ground, and I can see the grizzly out of my left peripheral vision. He would take a couple steps, and then he would just look back at me.
He would disengage you.
He'd disengage, and he's walking off. And he would take a couple steps, and he would just look right back at me and stare. And I'm just watching him out of the corner of my eye. And he'd take a couple more steps, and he'd just look back. And that's when I picked my head up, and I'm thinking, staying here is not an option. And I look, and I'm in the pine trees. I mean, I started off on a ridge, and now I'm in the pine trees. I had no idea where it was.
But when the bear's looking back at you, you've got lacerations on your scalp, which is hanging off. You've got broken hands. You've got puncture wounds all over your body.
Had no idea yet. I'm just laying on the ground, and if you've ever taken a hard fall, the first thing that you do is you just kind of do the all-around check. You just kind of, your eyes are still closed, and you do the wiggle, and I'm laying on the ground, and I'm thinking to myself, are you kidding me? Nothing hurts. And then when I picked my head up, I initially thought it was raining. And I look, and I went like that, and it was just, my head had so many cuts from the teeth that I was bleeding just out of control. And when I went like this, I saw blood, and then when I looked at my hands, my fingers were going in all different directions. And this hand was about it was as thin as your cell phone. And I looked at it, and I just remember trying to get up, and I felt my shoulder just didn't want to work, and my hips were not wanting to move, so I just started crawling up the hill, yelling for my guide, Jordan. And I saw him running down the hill. Towards him. And I was about to ask him, the first thing I wanted to know was, how is my head? Because I was concerned. I didn't know if half of it was gone. I mean, you can't see yourself.
Sure.
And just when he was running down towards me, I could see him. And I was about to say, how is my head? And he looked at me, he goes, holy. And then I was afraid to ask. And from there, it was about just evacuation, trying to get up the mountain.
So where was the bear at this point? It just basically thrashed you and then left you.
Unbeknownst to me, when the bear hit me, Jordan's in his 20s.
Okay.
He saved my life. because he was walking that bear down the hill as it was attacking me.
What does that mean?
The bear's dragging me down the hill, because what they do is they drag you, maul you, bury you, and then come back and get you when you soften up. That's the protocol.
Nice.
Yep. And then they'll monitor that area, and if you're not dead, and when you leave, they'll sense it. Bears have they can smell 2,100 times better than a human.
Right.
They bite with 8 million pascals, which is a unit of measurement enough to crush a bowling ball.
Yes.
And they can smell 20 miles away. Okay. If you try to escape and they realize that, then they'll grab you again and they will bury you, and they'll kind of keep an eye on you. But anyways, Jordan was walking that bear. The bear's dragging me. He is walking the bear down. I had no idea about this until I flew Jordan to Texas after the attack to thank him. He's shooting left, right, and he said the bear kept getting more and more aggressive. And one of the rules of thumb is you never put a round into the animal. Why? Because if it hit a bone, it can ricochet and go in me. But he said it was getting so aggressive that on his last shot, he threw a round into the bear. He hit him in the hump on the Grizzly. You got the hump. Try not to hit a bone, and that shock startled the bear to have the bear get off me. And that's when I saw the bear get off. See, I didn't hear any of the shots. All I heard.
This is all happening while you're doing this internal triage and trying to figure out how bad am I hurt with your fingers going wrong.
There were two senses that I had when that bear was on me. Number one, I could hear him, the growl, the sounds, the teeth, and I could smell him. And Brian, he smelled like death. Anyway, so he shot the bear, and then that's what got the bear off me. And then from there, it was getting out of there.
So your guide finds a way to essentially save your life because you're done at this point. This bear had found a meal.
Yeah.
Had packaged you and was going to
Had he... Look, I mean, everybody thinks they know how they're going to act when their back is against the wall. I mean, it could be business, it could be personal. This, to me, was happened to be a hunting excursion. He didn't have to stay there. He could have saved himself. Because there is a possibility and a high probability that as he's walking the bear down, the bear could be like,
well, he shoots that bear.
Well, the bear could have jumped on
him.
Yeah, easily. I mean, they're going to get to you pretty quick. They run up to 35 miles an hour. He walked that bear down when he could have left and said, man, I tried to save him. Who's going to know?
Right.
But he didn't. I mean, he chose to engage, and for that, I'll never forget it.
So the bear disengages. You essentially have a hero, an angel who helped you out in your guide. Now you find yourself in the middle of nowhere. You're completely torn apart.
Mm-hmm.
It's not exactly like you can walk down to the local emergency room. So what takes place after that, after the attack?
Yep. Two things. I mean, guides carry what's called an in-touch system, which is a satellite system that allows them to communicate with base camp. And he would use that every day to check in and test it. For whatever reason, whether it was the Indian or the arrow, I don't know, that in-touch system was not working after the attack. We had to go back up to where we were, and we had left our backpacks, whole other side of the story, down the other side of the ridge. In all of our gear was my sat phone and his in-touch system. Well, his in-touch system was not communicating with base camp, so we couldn't use it. I was carrying a sat phone in my backpack, and by happenstance, I was fiddle farting around with it the day before and figured out that you can check your longitude and latitude and all those things on the sat phone. And I told him the sat phone's in my backpack. I couldn't grab it because my hands were smashed, to get the longitude and latitude, and there's a red button on the top right side of every sat phone. And I told him, I said, I think when you push that button, I think the Navy SEALs are coming, I don't know. And we hit that button, which is the SOS button. And about 5 seconds later, we got a text message. It said, "Dear unit and subscriber, in order to use the SOS feature, you have to first fill out the questionnaire. It's a free service, but mandatory for this feature." And I was thinking to myself, man, this is great, because, Mr. Me, I don't read directions. If it comes with pictures, I'll look at it and build something. But
right.
Maybe that's something that I should have done.
It's a salesperson in you.
And he said, this is not working. And I said, well, since we can't get from where we're at to base camp, we're gonna have to work backwards from Houston to base camp. I said, you need to call my wife. He called my wife from that mountain. She was in the parking lot of a grocery store in Houston, Texas. And he said, Elizabeth, my name is Jordan. I'm your husband's guide. He's been attacked by a grizzly bear. And then the phone went dead. What happened is the emergency system, it does work. They cut her off, they put themselves in, and from there he was able to give them our longitude and latitude. They were able to get a hold of the base camp. They couldn't get a plane in because the float plane in because the ceiling was too low. But they were able to notify base camp that they had a man down and get Stan, the owner of the operation, out there on the helicopter with our longitude and latitude to try to get us off of that.
So from the end of the attack until you were administered some type of aid, what was that time frame? How long was it? So I'm assuming you were taken out by a helicopter.
Yeah. You've
so
got,
how long did that take?
The attack happened around 10 o'clock in the morning.
Okay.
I didn't go into surgery until 9:30 at night. And the surgery was a 6.5 hour surgery. But in the mountain ranges, first you have to go by helicopter. The Stan came out, picked us up in the helicopter, got us back to base camp. But we couldn't get a float plane to get in there because the ceiling was too low, so they had to strip everything out. This helicopter it's not the Trump chopper, it's the Magnum PI chopper.
Okay, gotcha.
They had to strip everything out of this helicopter just to get me from base camp to Norman Wells, which doesn't have a hospital.
Okay.
And there was actually a doctor in our group that had shot out that was going to ride with us to keep monitoring my vitals. And I remember Stan got in his chair, and the doctor got in, and Stan looked at him and said, "You're not going to be able to make this trip, Bob." And Bob's like, "I need to be checking his vitals." And Stan said, "This thing is not built for this range. You're not going to make this trip with us." And I was sitting in the back of that chopper, just thinking to myself, "Wow! I thought the challenge was getting off of the mountain. The challenge is getting that helicopter to that city, which was 2 hours and 45-minute flight, when it's not built for that."
So, what are a list of the injuries that you had incurred during this short period of time?
Serious head wounds, 47 staples in my head. Broke my hands in about 6 different places. He got me in my shoulder, missed my brachial artery by a 1/4 of an inch. Had he hit that artery, I'd have bled out. He dug into my back. He missed puncturing a lung by 2 millimeters. Had he punctured the lung, I'd have bled out. Got my hip. I had a hip gash that was 7.5 inches long, 1.5 inches wide, and 3 inches deep. So I kind of get the dimensions of that. Then he hit my right thigh, left thigh, and right calf.
Wow.
I had more stitches than you can count, broken hands, and several staples in my head.
So I don't want to really have a hokey type of transition here, but I think people go through, and we all have our own experiences. They don't have to be a grizzly bear, but everybody in life at some point is going to have a transformative moment, which will make you reconsider your values and what you're going to do. I'm assuming this is one of those. As far as how you approach your business, because you manage not only a lot of people, but how you manage them affects their lives and their children and their families. I've got to assume this had a big impact on you. How does it affect how you deal with your business and personal life post-attack?
Great question. You had mentioned it earlier. You said, I assume while the bear was on you, you weren't worrying about the Smith lock.
Right.
Remember that? And what this taught me, and one of the things that I talk to our employees about, is life is about balance. You may have a great personal life, and if your business structure isn't on a level playing field, life has problems. Or maybe your business is way up here and your personal life is down here, and that creates problems too. For me, what that taught me was balance. And what I tell our employees and friends now is, you may have a fantastic business, but when that bear hit me, I was thinking about my 9-year-old, my 10-year-old, and my 21-year-old, and my wife. Yeah. So how many baseball practices, ball games, dance recitals, gymnastics events, football events, how many of those things, as we are, we're hunter-gatherers as men.
Sure.
That's the way the Lord made us.
I agree with that.
How many of those are we forsaking today because we're building this business? We're an originator. It doesn't matter what you're doing. You can be an originator, processor. It doesn't matter. The most important position, answering the phones, right? Your director of first impressions, it doesn't matter. But you're going to get to it tomorrow. Those other things. I call that majoring in the minors and minoring in the majors. And it's backwards. It's backwards. And I challenge folks today. I said, don't miss those, because if you can bring in your personal life and your business life to an even playing field, that's the most important thing. Because I believe your business will improve if you can bring that up to balance.
And I was going to say, this seems counterintuitive for somebody who owns a mortgage company. My default knee jerk would say you want your people to produce as much as humanly possible, but what I'm hearing from you is your production numbers aren't as important as the balance in your life. And if your production is coming at a consequence to your personal life, then you need to look at your personal life a little bit more.
If you have goals and balance between personal life and business, I believe your production will increase. Whereas if you are solely focusing on the business aspect of it and not paying attention to your employees' personal lives and their balance, I believe that their production will decrease. That's my personal opinion. I mean, I am probably the biggest candidate. I was that guy when I was 20 and 30 years old who did miss all those practices, and I can't get that time back. You can't get the stone after the throw. You can't get the occasion after it's missed. You can't. I was that guy, and I'm 50 years old, and I see these young, aggressive, just going to conquer the world folks coming into the industry, and I love it.
Yeah,
but I don't want them to look back at 50 saying, you know what, I wish I could get that time back, because they can't. So if folks like you and I can look at them and say, you know what, let's keep things in balance. You're going to get what you deserve on the work side. Input equals output. But let's not forget about this side over here.
See, what you're speaking about, having teenagers now, is it's the wisdom of the years of your life. Do you share this with the folks at your company often? I mean, is this part of the fabric of Interlink? Are these conversations that you're having with your managers or LOs and talking about life balance?
It is now. I mean, we have a gentleman in our organization that his production is just skyrocketing, right? And what a young individual will see, what they'll compare themselves to, are other top originators in the organization.
Sure.
I want to be like you.
Sure.
Matter of fact, no, I want to take you down. You're number one, I want to make you number two, which is great.
Sounds like something you would have done
as
a young man.
But what they don't see are the relationships that you have created within the organization and what you have going on in your personal life. And I saw this individual's production skyrocketing, but I saw the relationships with the individuals at the organization going down, because he thought that you just had to be a tyrant to get what you wanted, right? I had the ability to call him and say, look, here's the deal. These folks here are going to create your success, because you're going to hit a ceiling, because you need these folks to bust you through that glass ceiling. And if you don't have these folks behind you, right now they wouldn't piss on you if you were on fire.
Right.
They wouldn't. But if these folks are behind you, you have no limit to your career. Nobody ever talked to him about that. So we get him a coach, get him involved with real tricky, how to win friends and influence people.
Sure.
Because that's one thing that folks don't teach. You come in, you're originator, let me teach you the business, go get them, Tiger. Yeah. But they forget to talk about all of the communication and the relationship side of the deal. You want something done, who do you call, how do you do it, and how do you get it through?
Right.
So those are the types of things that we're working on.
That sounds fantastic. Now, what would you give for a new loan officer coming into the business right now? Real quickly, because we're coming up on time.
Yeah.
What piece of advice, based on your life experiences, would you tell a loan officer who's new or somebody who's seasoned? I imagine it would probably be the same message.
When we sit down with folks coming into the business, it's looking back. I mean, number one, it's enjoy the journey. Yeah. Remember when we were young, we were aggressive. We always wanted to we always focused on tomorrow, focused on the next day. If I can just get here, if I can just get there. And number one, focusing on the journey. And I'll tell folks now when we sit down and talk to them, I said, when we get to be our age, you better have most of what you need, and the Lord's given us everything. Everything that we need, the Lord's given us. We have a lot of things that we want. And if we don't by this age, man, that's a problem, right? But now it's about, for me, you could probably name on a sheet of paper who's been most influential in your life to help you get where you are. Who are
Easily,
who
off
are
the top of my head.
Boom. For you and I now, it's about teaching that new person getting into the business that in 20 years from now, 30 years from now, they're 20, they're 30, and 20 or 30 years from now, when they sit down and somebody says, who are the 3 most influential people in your life to help you get from where you are to where you were to where you are, personal business, your and I's name's got to be on that sheet of paper. And if you can commit to being the person that our name is on that sheet of paper, you're doing right by them.
That's a hell of a message here. Jim, thank you so much.
Enjoyed it.